How does this happen? I will give you an example. Think about production of electricity. An example, production of electricity. How do you produce electricity? We derive coal or oil from the geosphere. Okay? We derive coal or oil from the geosphere. So, that means we are disturbing the environment, and then we produce electricity, and in the process of generating electricity, we also produce, what do we produce from the thermal power plant? SO2, CO2 and all these things. And these SO2 and CO2, they will again disturb the environment. That means the climatic condition will change, and when the climatic condition change, then what will happen? That will in turn restrict the human behavior. Okay, how? When there is a change in climatic condition, then the agricultural production, what was possible earlier, will not be produced now onwards. When there is a change in the climatic condition, the living creatures which were available earlier, they won't be available right now. And then the policymakers and the government, they will intervene, they will bring regulation to restrict, to reshape the behavior of the economic agents. So, that means we, the economic agents, in the process of production and consumption, we are actually throwing the garbages and disturbing the environment, and environment in turn is now reshaping the human behavior. Okay? How is it happening? Some part of this behavior is automatically changed. Our food habit will automatically change. Our production behavior will automatically change, and some part of our behavior would be restricted by the imposition of regulations, environmental regulations imposed by the government. Okay? So, this example actually illustrates how we disturb the environment by taking the minerals from the geosphere, production of electricity, and then throwing CO2, SO2 and all other environmentally detrimental gases to the environment, and that is why environment is also giving a feedback both to the production side and the consumption side. So, this diagram basically explains the interlinkages between economy and environment. But one thing is not yet clear. We have understood the interlinkages, but we have not yet established why is the environment a scarce resource. Look at these three circles once again. See, the way I have drawn these three circles, there is some kind of overlap between E1, E2 and E3. Okay? There is some kind of overlap between E1, E2 and E3. The question is why? Why is this E1, E2 and E3, they are not disjoint sets, rather they are overlapping with each other. Can you think of? The reason why these three circles are overlapping, it indicates from the diagram itself, it is very clear. If you want to increase the size of E1, then automatically size of E2 and E3 will come down. If you want to increase the size of E2, then E1 and E3 will come down. And if you want to increase the size of E3, then E1 and E2 will come down. Why this is happening? The idea is this: suppose you want to extract more and more resources from the environment, okay? More and more energy and materials from the environment. That means lot of minings are happening. What will happen? You will generate lot of dust in the process of extraction, and in the process of production also you will make lot of garbages, and those garbages you will throw to the environment. An environment has a limited capacity to absorb all those garbages what you are producing in the process of resource extraction and production of electricity and so many other things. So, that means the moment you extract more and more resources from the environment, you are actually losing the waste sink capacity of the environment, at the same time the amenity value. If there are a lot of minings in the hilly regions, nowadays when you go to any hilly regions, you see lot of minings are happening. That means the nature what you are enjoying earlier, they won't be available for your enjoyment right now, because you are extracting too much of resources. So, that means if I try to increase the size of E1, E2 and E3 is coming down. Similarly, if you decide no, I will enjoy the nature, I will not allow any more extraction. So, what will happen? Your E1 will come down and E3 will go up. Similarly, if you want to increase E2, if you want to increase the size of E2 waste sink capacity, that means you should actually use less resource, you should extract less resource and less production. So, E1 will come down. So, that means basically it says that the environment is actually limited in its availability. These three services are limited in nature. The moment we try to increase one, the other will come down, and this is called relative scarcity. Relative scarcity. So, environment, the way we think, it is actually not an abundant factor. If environment is an abundant factor, then there is absolutely no need of applying economic principles while dealing with the environmental issues. Actually, it is not. You can understand from these overlapping three circles. We are deriving three important services from the environment, and the moment we try to increase the size of any of these services, then the other two will come down. So, this is called relative scarcity, and this relative scarcity makes us thinking what should be then the optimal size of E1 star, E2 and E3 denoted by the star. So, that means we need to have a proper size of E1, E2, E3. That means we cannot say that we will only enjoy the environment, we will not derive any resource from the minerals or resources from the environment. We have to extract resource, we have to use the waste sink capacity of the environment also. At the same time, we must enjoy the amenity value. That means there should be a proper size of E1, E2, E3 which are denoted by E1 star, E2 star and E3 star. So, environmental services needs to be optimally allocated for different purposes. And who will ensure this is E1 star, E2 star, E3 star? That is the job of economics. So, this would be ensured by economics. Is this clear? Now we have understood, yes, environment is actually a scarce resource. We need to optimally decide its services, and then economics will play an important role here. As we all know, the only role the economics play is optimal allocation of resources, efficient allocation of resources, so that we derive the maximum satisfaction or utility. So, from this diagram, two things are clear. This diagram explains the interlinkages between the economy, and the environment. This diagram also makes us understand environment is actually a scarce resource, and that is why economics has a role in deciding environmental issues. We will try to understand the scarcity of resources with a simple mathematical formulation also. What we will do? Let us understand that this is the utility of jth individual, like you, me, or any other individual can be called as jth individual. And this jth individual's utility depends on a vector of marketable goods which are denoted by x1, x2, then dot 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 xn. These are called marketable goods. And then this jth percent utility also depends on Q1, Q2, Qm. These are called environmental goods and services. Okay. Environmental goods and services. Now, you can think of marketable goods like let us say shirt, then this computer, then the vehicle what you drive, so on and so forth. These are all marketable goods. And what is environmental goods and services? Maybe air quality, water quality, so on and so forth, right, so on and so forth. Now, for our satisfaction, we actually need both the goods. Okay? You cannot say that I will take only x1, only x, and I will not take any of this q, then you cannot survive, because without a minimum level of environmental cleanliness, environmental quality, we cannot survive here. Similarly, if you say I will enjoy only the clean environment, there also you cannot survive. Oxygen is not enough for your survival. We all need food, shelter, clothes, computer, all these things, right. Now, from this utility function, let us say that we are thinking about this x1, which is a car that we derive, and let us say that this is q1, which is air quality. Air quality. Okay. Now, when we drive the car, what happens to our utility? If the jth individual drives a car, what will happen to jth's individual utility uj? Obviously, that is positive. We will all enjoy driving a car. So, that means I can say del u j del x1 is positive. Okay? If we drive more car, then we will enjoy lot of utilities. But if you enjoy your driving, then automatically you will disturb the air quality, that means you will disturb the environment. What will happen to this? So, you will first disturb the environment, and then if you disturb the environment, in turn that will give an indirect impact on the utility also, that means del u j del q is also there. So, what is the sign of this? See, this is basically, this is positive, sorry, this is negative. And this is also, in turn it will negative, some kind of negative impact it will give. Okay. So, that means this you can think of negative kind of thing. If you drive car, that will result in deterioration of the environmental quality, and that in turn will reduce the utility. So, that means there are two effects. This is the first effect and this is the second one. And what is the net impact of driving a car then? Okay. Net impact of driving a car is ambiguous. Net impact, so this is the first component, this is the second component, this is the first component and this is second component. So, net impact of driving a car is then unknown as it is determined by the relative strengths of the first and second impact. Okay. So, net impact is unknown, but one thing is clear even from this simple mathematical formulation, that if we want to enjoy more and more marketable goods, then we need to sacrifice environmental quality. If we need to enjoy more and more environmental quality, we need to sacrifice marketable goods. That means there is a need to determine how much car we will drive and how much environmental cleanliness we will enjoy. So, that means there is a trade-off between environmental quality and production of this marketable goods. If you recall, that is also another principle that we learned from our principles of economics. That means there is a trade-off between environmental quality and marketable goods. So, once again what we need to derive? The optimal quantity of X and Q. And who will determine that? Economics. Economics. Okay. So, we have established the role of economics in dealing with environmental issues. But then the question is, we have already studied microeconomics, macroeconomics, why environmental economics then? Why environmental economics? We have already studied economics, and if at all economics principles are required to understand and to deal with environmental issues, we already know that why there is a separate branch called environmental economics. Now, to understand that, if you recall in our microeconomics, what we used to do, our utility function, jth individual's utility function, utility was a function of only x and y, two goods, where x and y were both marketable goods. In microeconomics, we have never dealt with any utility function. So, this is the microeconomics. But when your utility function is x and q, marketable goods and environmental quality, that becomes an extension of macroeconomics, which is environmental economics. This is the first thing. Secondly, in microeconomics, how we have decided this optimality of x star and y star? Through price. And who decides this price? By the market. So, market will decide, if you recall from our principles of economics, market will decide what to produce, how much to produce, who will buy those, all those things market decides by a single most powerful instrument, which is the price. But when you talk about environmental quality, air quality, water quality, there is no market. Is there any market for air quality? Is there any market for water quality? No. So, market does not exist. And when market does not exist, what happens? The price, what we think about these environmental goods and services, they are improper. So, that means improper price signal. We tend to think environmental goods and services as free goods and services. Improper price signaling induces us thinking environmental goods and services are free. So, when we think they are free, obviously there would be a tendency of overconsumption. And this overconsumption only leads to environmental degradation. So, that means the problem starts here. There is no direct market for environmental goods and services. That is why the price signaling is improper. We think that environmental goods and services are free good, we tend to overconsume them, and that is the reason for environmental degradation. So, to deal with these issues, that means what we need to do, we need to get a proper price signaling, we need to estimate, we need to determine appropriate prices for environmental goods and services. And so far in our microeconomics literature, actually we have not learned, when there is no market, how to estimate the prices of those goods and services. This environmental economics will help us understand how to determine the appropriate prices for environmental goods and services to deal with the environmental degradation. So, these are the two reasons. Environmental economics is actually an extension of microeconomics, the traditional neoclassical economics of utility maximization, and the extension is here. So far we assume utility is a function of only marketable goods X and Y, but now onwards we will think that utility is actually a function of marketable goods as well as environmental quality. Okay? And secondly, since there is no direct market for environmental goods and services, environmental economics literature that we are going to discuss in this course, that will help us basically understand how to determine and estimate appropriate prices for these goods and services, so that we get a proper price signaling. And once the price signal is proper, then we can actually solve the problem of environmental degradation. So, this actually whatever we have discussed so far, this is our first module where we have discussed the importance and justification of studying environmental economics by understanding the marriage between economics and environment, by understanding the interlinkages between the economy and the environment. Okay? And in our next class, we are going to discuss about what are the other modules. That means I will try to give you an overview, an outline of the entire syllabus of this course, environmental and resource economics. So, with this we are closing our discussion today, and we will meet again once again tomorrow. Please read this before we come back to our next session. Okay? Please watch this video and think about this. Tomorrow I will be discussing about the remaining portion of our syllabus, and I will also let you know the reference, that means the text as well as the references for that we are going to use for this entire course. So, this is going to be an interesting course. I hope you will enjoy this course, but only thing what I require from your side is immediate reading and watching these videos. Okay? With this we are closing our discussion. Thank you very much.